Hello, welcome back. Let's go over some more vocabulary words in preparation for your TOEFL exam. So let's get started. All right. So let's go to the first word, advocate. Advocate. This is when we want to publicly support a cause, policy, or even a person. So, for example, I advocate for my dad when I take him to his medical appointments. So, if I see something that he needs and the doctor or even the nurse is not listening, I will advocate for him and say, hey, this is what my dad is wanting. Also, you could advocate for something to be changed. Maybe you want more math in school. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be crazy? Math drives me crazy, but in any event, let's say you want more math in school. So you will advocate for more math in school. So anything that you are trying to support, you advocate for. And our example is many scientists advocate for renewable energy to combat climate change. So, what does that mean? We're trying to make things better. That's what the scientists are trying to say. We're advocating for this so we can obviously make things better for our planet. All right, advocate. Let's go to the next one. Distinct. Distinct. This is something that is clearly different or separate. There is a distinct difference between formal and informal writing. And so, what that is just saying is, formal writing, for example, greetings, how are you today? But my informal, hey friend, what's up? See the difference? One is very professional and polite, one is not. Think of formal writing, research paper for your university class, or an email to your boss at work or maybe work colleagues, but informal, something we would write to a friend, an acquaintance, something that is, we're not trying to be all conservative and professional. So, and we talk that way too. So, for example, there is a distinct difference between how we speak with somebody at work versus how we speak with somebody we know, casual. So at work, I'm going to be a little bit different. Hello, how are you today? How was your weekend? But with my friends, neighbors, hey, what's up? Tell me what's going on. Spill the tea. So there is a distinct difference, and we all do that. We're going to act one way with one group of people and act another way with a different group of people. And so formal and informal, a little bit of vocabulary there too, my friends. All right, let's go to the next one. Factor. This is something that contributes to a result. So, for example, weather is a major factor in crop production. So, if it's not going to rain and we're in a drought where we're not getting any rain, holy cow, that's going to destroy a lot of crop production. Things are just not going to grow. So, I live near a bunch of wineries, and when we have a lot of rain, wow, those wineries look absolutely beautiful. However, because I live in Southern California and we are known for basically no rain, we're always in some sort of drought. Those wineries start to look a little. So, weather definitely is a major factor for the wineries around here. So, that is an example for factor. All right, let's go to the next one. Indicate. Indicate, to show or point out. So, rising sea levels indicate the effects of global warming. So, rising sea levels, we're pointing out that because it's going up, holy cow, this is kind of an indicator that we've got some issues. So, when you want to point something out, you want to show something, you indicate. Indicate. All right. Decline. To become smaller, fewer, or less. So the population of the species has declined. over the last decade, it's gone down. So when something declines, it's gone down. We can also use it in a different way. For example, accept or decline an invitation. I want to invite you to my birthday party. Do you accept, which means yes, or you decline, which means no? So we can also see it in that way. So if you see something where I declined his CV, that means I said no to his CV. I declined his invitation for lunch. That means I said no. So decline, something goes down, or we say no to something. Um, we see a decline, wow, in birth rates. I was reading something about Japan the other day, as well as South Korea, and this is also happening in the United States. Birth rate, people having babies, it is declining, meaning it's going down. So we see this word going down, as well as we say no, 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 no. All right, so let's go to the next one. Ensure. You want to make sure something happens. Please double check your answers to ensure accuracy. And that's really important when you are taking the TOEFL. You may think you're done, but obviously this is a timed test, so you do have to pay attention to the time that you have left. But after you are done, glance over your answers, ensure that, hey, you've answered everything to the best of your ability. Don't second guess yourself, but just ensure, okay, everything looks great. I think I'm done with this section. When I leave my house to go somewhere, I ensure all of the doors are locked. I also ensure that my kids did not leave the bathroom faucet on, which I do double check. So ensure, you want to make sure you double check something. When you send your child off to school, you sometimes have to ensure that they have their homework in their backpack. All right, let's go to the next one. Assume, to accept something as true without proof. Many people assume he is the manager because he gives orders. So they don't know if he's the manager, but they're just making that assumption. And everybody is guilty of this in life. We assume something without knowing all the facts. And I think we have to be very careful with that. And I would say society, but no, as a whole world. We hear something, you can, for example, gossip. You hear your friend say something about somebody else, you make that assumption that person is bad because your friend told you. But there's no proof, there's no fact that that person is bad. So I think we have to be very careful when we assume things. We should always try to know the facts, especially when it comes to gossip. All right, assume. Let's go to our last one. Contrast. Contrast. This is to compare in order to show differences. The essay contrasts urban and rural lifestyles. So urban would be the big city, New York City, and rural would be a very small town. So when you want to show the similarities, which is compare, and the differences, that would be contrast. So contrast, we want to show the differences. So sometimes I like to compare and contrast between cities of where people I talk with live. So the other day, person I was speaking with from Romania, we were contrasting the weather because there is a big difference between Southern California and Romania. So when you're pointing out differences, you're contrasting. When you're pointing out similarities, you're comparing. And the reason why I'm talking about the word compare, because oftentimes you will see compare and contrast. So you may see an essay question, whether on the TOEFL or maybe in a university class, if you're going to the university, and it'll say compare and contrast the following. It's simply telling you to compare the similarities and show the differences. All right, I hope that this is helping you. I kept this video a little bit shorter with vocabulary words. Again, this came up from somebody who was just overwhelmed with holy cow, Amanda, where do I start with the TOEFL? And again, I always think it's best to start slow. Start slow. Learn those vocabulary words so you feel comfortable with writing and speaking them in conversation, as well as if you hear them, whether at the movie or Netflix. Start slow, build up that vocabulary. It's so important. It will help you out greatly with the exam as well as your personal life. And then, of course, as time goes on, we'll build up even more with different tips. And just make sure when you schedule that TOEFL exam, you're scheduling months out. This is not an exam. I'm going to study every day and take it next month. A lot of the exam, you want to study the structure, as well as obviously brushing up with a lot of English. You need to make sure you're on point with that vocabulary, that grammar, just a lot of different stuff. And then at the very, very last part of your preparation, you definitely want to hone in, which means narrow in to the timing part. So often people don't think that's an important part, but it is. It is because, for example, I could go in and take the test, but if I haven't studied that part of timing, I'm going to mess up, especially with the speaking part, because you're not given a lot of time to think about the question versus answering it. So you have to get that in your mind about timing and work through anxieties, because I have anxiety when I take anything timed. So, but that's later on. You want to take your time now. It's not worth it to time yourself now, because holy cow, you're going to be so focused on the time that you're not really paying attention to what you're learning. So remember, if you schedule it way out, your exam, you have a lot of time to prepare. And the more time, the better. This is not an exam to rush through. And as always, there's going to be several videos on TOEFL preparation. So we're starting with vocabulary first. As always, message me with any questions or concerns.